want to build mental toughness and resilience for you, your family, your faith, and your future. Thanks for joining us today.
All right, welcome to Muscular Minds. This is your host, Jared. I'm glad to be here tonight to talk about something we all care about, which is parenting. And I've got some dads here tonight, and we have children that we're raising, have raised, and it's something that I think everybody's trying to figure out how to raise kids. And specifically tonight, we're going to talk about what it means to be a girl dad, and something that I think can be a unique challenge for each one of us guys that has daughters. But I've got guys here tonight that have, each one has 3 daughters. So these guys are uniquely qualified to be able to talk about this. And so I'm excited. We have Scott Patrick here tonight, and he is a retired military father of 4. And I have Scott Sela, who is minister and pastor at a local church I attend, and he has 3 daughters. Question out the gate, let's let Scott Patrick, you take this one. What's the best thing about being a girl dad?
Thanks, Jared. It's got to be, it completes you as a man. You don't really, there's something missing, or at least there was for me. And maybe y'all too can attest, it's just that completes the picture you have of life.
And I think it tugs on your heartstrings different from when I have a son. And so I have a brother. I obviously grew up with father. And so it was mostly just around guys. So having a daughter just shifted kind of how I felt about raising kids. What about you, Scott Sela? What was it like? Best part about you for being a girl dad?
I always talk about it as I never had to have the talk. That's one of the benefits I saw. No, the other one, it really is. It's amazing how proud you can be of your daughters. So when they step out and do things, but people don't expect of girls, I guess sometimes, and you get to see that, how they mature, how they live in the world. That's one of the cool things.
And you have the unique perspective of, your daughters have all recently have grown up or out of the house and gainfully employed. Is that like coming full circle, seeing all this hard work paying off after as a parent?
Yeah, the last few years, 24, 27, and 30 are their ages. And, I've got 2 grandsons from the oldest, and watching them settle in and get their jobs and do well, take things on their own, is pretty proud.
So I appreciate the discussion about the emotions with the girls. It is different than I think how a lot of men are wired. The intensity of the emotions and trying to help manage those or comfort. Let's talk a little bit about something challenging specifically about raising a daughter. And if you want to think about an experience you had or something hard you went through with your daughter, you can as well. I'm thinking just how it even started for me. My daughter was born a little bit premature, and before we even really got to hold her, she was care flighted to a NICU, 100 miles away because our breathing was compromised. And so that was a really difficult start. And I feel like that was kind of my immersion into having to be a girl dad. And so it was one of those things that just really, from the beginning, I was trying to learn how to do that. But I think it brings its own unique challenges. Dr. Patrick, what's something that you feel it's been challenging or is hard about being a girl dad?
Right from the start, it forces you, the dad and a man, to look at yourself different. And I realize this beautiful girl is going to grow up and have to deal with people like me. And that was hard. It's still hard because I'm not perfect. I'll be the first to tell you, I make mistakes daily, big mistakes, small mistakes. Find a mistake, I'll make it. And just being, especially now with 3, I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum to Sela in a jealous way. My daughters are all young. I have a 6, 5, and 3-year-old daughter, and my sons too. But it's a daily reminder with all 3 of them in different ways. You see things that they admire in you, and you're like, crap, that's going to draw you to people like me. And I have to, for me at least, it creates a lot of pressure. I have to teach them to deal with that in a constructive and positive way. And in a lot of ways, I'm not ready.
Well, I think that's a terrifying thing, Scott Patrick, because I have a teenage girl, and nobody prepared me for dating. And when the guys are coming around and I'm like, I want to fight them all. Maybe we can lean on some wisdom here. Scott, what advice would you give the rest of us about how do we survive the dating situation with the daughters? Because we're overprotective. We don't want any guys near our daughters.
Yeah, that's that inside part. You definitely are overprotective. You keep that eye on them all the time, but navigating it, you got to be careful how over you are, because you do want your daughters to ultimately meet guy, get married, that kind of thing. And so, you could hamper that with your over aggressiveness. Part of that was just keeping that communication open, letting them talk about them, not criticizing the boy. Let your wife and you have those discussions instead. You guys talk that through versus doing that in front of her. And man, us, trusting God in that. I think if I was listening, we weren't sure about our son-in-law when they first started dating, but God worked on us and worked on him.
Something I'm hearing I think is really important is the relationship with our daughter, that we really have to lean into that so that we can work through the hard things about trying to navigate those relationships, specifically if they are going to result in a marriage. They'll need them to be able to navigate that. Yeah. So I want us to think about for a second, what's the one thing that you want your daughter to, like a quality or a trait that you feel like really is important that she has as you raised her or have raised her? Scott Patrick, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can. I think it starts with a lot of mental resilience, and that's not like I was in the military. I can do that with a son. Spent the last decade with that specific age group doing that. With a daughter, that's hard. And what Scott Sela just said was beautiful, because he captured not just a communication with the daughter and keeping that open, but also with your wife, and that keeping it separate and managing the picture the daughter has of your relationship. That's something I'm working on it. Me and Emma aren't perfect. We work through it one issue at a time, not hiding that, managing that picture so that they can see, hey, mom and dad, no matter what the problem is, they figure out a way to come together and work through it. So you're teaching them not just that individual mental resilience, but resilience as a couple.
I like that. And I think what you're saying is like, hey, we're being real here with our kids. I think older generations, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this. I for example, I never saw any disagreement between my parents ever. And they did, but that was their goal to do that away from us behind closed doors. But I think the challenge for me as I enter my own relationships as an adult, that those things aren't supposed to happen. And if they do, something's very, very wrong. And I think what I have learned is it's more important to be real and to show my kids that, hey, it may be hard, but we can work through it. We're going to problem solve as a couple, and we're going to move forward, so that she sees that if she does have a disagreement or an argument, that it's something that it's an opportunity to resolve something. It doesn't have to be an obstacle that you can't overcome. It's an opportunity to problem solve with your partner and move down the road. So I like the idea of resilience. I like the idea of just being real in any of those relationships. So I appreciate you sharing that. Scott Sela, what are your thoughts about like that trait that you really wanted or did develop into your daughters?
If something good was there, it's my wife, which is true. The ability that they can do stuff. A lot of times it's like, oh, you're a girl and you can't X, Y, Z, but they can do stuff and they can do it well and they can excel and, they can beat the boys in certain things. It's that, not girl power, but you have the ability to do the things. If you put your mind to it and you work hard at it, you may not be perfect, but you can do it.
I think that's the second time that I'm hearing the importance of self-worth, self-esteem is in building that up to a really high level to achieve. Am I hearing that right, Scott?
Yeah. And there's still that other part, again, I'm a guy who is harder, the self-reliance for the ability to do things when it comes to the emotional part. For me, that was always the struggle of, I don't get it when they be at conflict with friends and all that emotional stuff going on, because I'm the guy of like, well, I don't care, but they do. And it does matter. And so having to figure that out, I could probably spend the entire podcast talking about what I would do different. But it's that emotional resilience that I couldn't tell you how to do that, but it's different than with the guys of pushing through. How you interact with other guys is so different with how the girls interacted. There's stuff that still doesn't make sense to me.
3 grown daughters and married for a lot of years, still trying to figure it out. I appreciate the hope, or maybe not hope on that. Hey, but I do think you said something that I think is actually be good for all of us to hear, and whoever else listens to this. What we do different is kind of a support and encouragement, not just to each other, but like whoever else might be listening. And I think it's only fair that I go first, since I'm kind of throwing that on y'all to think about it. I'm just going to say, I think I want to make sure that she feels important. So that when I'm working or busy or doing things, that she sees that I have the ability to stop, give attention, listen, to be attentive if I need to be, or I'm at the track meet or the game, so that she sees that I'm supportive and encouraging her in the hard things that she may have to do. So just that I'm available to her. And I don't think that I'm not doing that, but it's important that I think that I continue to do that, because that is something that I think is a constant challenge. And she's older, she's older teenager. So I don't have much time left to continue to practice that skill. What about the rest of y'all? What would you say? Well, and the wise one, Scott Sela.
First off, I love the word you used, that they feel important, because women just don't seem to feel or realize how valuable they are. And that's not something I want to instill. First off, it's beautiful how you worded that. Secondly, I'll just use what I'm working on now. That's just modeling the absolute best man that I can be. I'll be honest, I fail at that more than I succeed. But I feel like if I can get to a point where I'm modeling at least a attempt at the man that I want them to end up with, they will at least find somebody that's also attempting to be that man. And I don't want to say that might be the best that they get, but like, nobody's going to be the ideal man that I'm picturing for my daughter, right? But if they can get the man that's genuinely trying to be that man, they're going to be okay.
I appreciate the wisdom on that, Scott Patrick. Why don't you close us out on this question? What do you think?
As the value and how to do that, though, and I didn't do this well, how they are to God versus their performance. I've got 3 extremely overachiever daughters, and the danger there, and proud of them, love them. Wow, that was great. How to do that, but still apply the value separate and apart from those things.
Yeah.
And that's a looking back of how could I have done that better and not tie it to their performance, but to them.
So what you're saying basically is, hey, you're valuable. The relationship's important. The performance, yes, it's important, but it's not the only thing. Is that kind of how I'm understanding that?
Yeah. And the struggle with, we tend to talk about what we see and the performance, and we're proud, but then, when we do that, somehow finding a way to affirm, because if we just do that, then they think it's tied to if I did it right or did it wrong. And the performance. And that's the struggle of being proud dads on guys, probably especially girls, it's tied to, they believe it's tied to if they do good or not good.
Okay.
And I don't think that's any of our hearts. We're just, when we see something good, we'll encourage them on it and don't realize we've got to figure out other ways besides their performance. I wish I had found some better ways to do that.
Thank you, Scott Sila. Okay. Think about this for a second. I want us to talk about, I think all of us here are raising or have raised what I would call pretty tough, resilient daughters, or in the process of doing that. And I think that is really important. And so I want us to think about yourself as a dad, about why you want to do that. But I'm thinking about my own daughter from an early age. I had her doing some things that I had my son doing. Like he's mowing the lawn. Okay. Like, and you can also help. You can come over here and you can help me rake leaves, or we're playing stuff in the front yard. You can do that with me. So it's not just like inside tasks. You can do the outside tasks as well. He's playing sports. You can play sports. So I didn't necessarily differentiate boys can only do this or girls can only do this. It was, we're both doing things, whether they're easy or hard, we're going to do them. And so I just kind of threw her in there with him. And I think that gave her some of, I guess, that confidence to be able to do some of those things. So that was just something I intentionally was thinking about early that I wanted to do. And I do think it has kind of helped her toughen up a little bit up against an older brother and doing in the middle of those things. What about y'all? What is something that y'all are actively doing to create some of that toughness that's required to just be a woman in society sometimes in our world? Like, what are y'all actively thinking or doing as you raise your kids or have raised your kids?
Especially in the older two, but they've been exposed to this from day one. We're teaching them that certain behaviors are not acceptable, even for me. Like, I'm not going to let me talk to you that way, for example. It's a balancing act, obviously, and we focus a lot on keeping it balanced. 6 years old, you will go clean your room when you need to go clean your room. But I'm never disrespectful in the way that I have them go do the thing. Like the standard, still the standard, like no is still no. But I know for me growing up, it was kind of brutal. She do it the right way the first time. And I'm sure some of y'all can relate to that. I was scared to talk to my dad for a long time. And I don't want that. To kind of foster that and instill an expectation, especially of men. Hey, no, I will be treated with a certain degree of respect, has been real focused for us. But just that self-worth and like, hey, I have value just being you. I don't have to hit XYZ benchmark. I am important.
That's really good. Like that, Scott Patrick, they're like just teaching the communication early age. Hey, there's going to be some intensity, argument, even conflict, but we can talk this out. We can problem solve respectfully. We still kind of, okay, dad's still dad, mom's still mom, but we don't have to yell at each other or be harsh about it. God, what's your guilt?
Do things with them, like you're talking about, Jared. A lot of times you picture the little guy helping you do a project, but get them to help you too. They can do it. So they know how to use a screwdriver. They know what it's for. They know how to fix some things, which got to see in all of them as they were in their first apartment, kind of things like that, and stuff would break. My daughters were the ones that would help fix it.
Nice.
So then think through, how do you deal with this situation and not panic, kind of thing. And so they had roommates that would ask them. So yeah, doing those kind of things that you typically think, like you said, Jared, or guy things, they can do it too. And then we should know it.
Yeah, I know my wife from an early age, when she had to learn how to change a tire. Cause like, if you're going to be driving, you're stranded. What are you going to do? Cause I may not be available. Right. So her dad made her learn how to change tires. I'm around now, so I get to do that task, but she at least knows how to do it if it came down to it. Talk about for a second, maybe a highlight. One of the best things that you can think of as far as a highlight, as far as being a girl dad that you have a memory of. And I will just say, it seems strange, but it's like it was a moment where my daughter actually was cut from a volleyball team. And so super upset. She was really frustrated by that. But she had a cross-country coach reach out and say, hey, we want you for cross-country. We'd love for you to do that. And at this point, my daughter had never really done any kind of running. She was mostly soccer and into basketball. She had just started to try to play volleyball. And so she started to do cross-country, and she loved it. And now she loves to run. And she's been on varsity as a runner since she's been a freshman, does track. And that's something I don't even think she occurred to her that she would do. But one of the highlights to me is sometimes the things that we don't expect end up being something that's a highlight. And I think that really has taught me a lot as a dad to be open for things that I don't expect. And it may be a hard thing or it may be a heartbreak that turns into something really cool. So that's me. Patrick, you have something?
It's not really tied to anything that you do. It's just more of our behavior that my oldest has. Actually, my two oldest now have it every night, and they go to bed, like they're in different rooms now. So reading to them all individually got kind of to the point where we had to, all right, the older two can do a podcast, the next two will read too, right? And then, but the two oldest will come in and I'll ask for the podcast, and completely unprompted, when I noticed that every night he was asking for my phone to do the podcast, we unprompted of our own volition, give me a hug. And then, or my favorite dad, or like something along those lines, like, you're the best, completely unprompted. And she's done that every night for, probably 6 months now. And that's just like, there is nothing better.
No, you're right.
That's right.
And all that attention is pretty special at that age. I like that. So, Godzilla?
Lots of them, as the old guy in the room, watching as they become adults and they're doing adult things. But for one, just seeing them work together and love each other, didn't think that would happen at times when they were younger.
Not that, I guess the sisterhood part.
Yeah, the sisterhood part is a challenge. And, and I know you guys realize every single one of your daughters is different. And so it's like, oh, I figured out. But the next one is completely different. And the next one's completely different. But watching them be there in love for each other. The first grandson is 3, completely speechless when we were waiting for him to come. We didn't know boy or girl. My wife and I were in the waiting room out in Charleston trying to sleep. Daughter calls and she said, would you like to come down and meet Aaron Scott? I couldn't talk after that. So Clean had no idea. As we go down the hallway to go to them, she had no idea it was a boy. She had no idea the name because I could not talk. Because my daughter, her firstborn, they chose the middle name Scott. That just was, I was done after that for quite a while. But for watching them and seeing them work, they're watching them, the 2 younger ones, loving on those boys the older one has, just being there for each other. It's like, okay, we did something right.
I appreciate you sharing that. Let's wrap up our time tonight. I want you to think about, you're a new father, your new girl dad. What advice would you give, or what wisdom would you share to help someone as they're kind of getting started? Because each one of us had a unique perspective, and like y'all have had 3 of those moments. And so to the guy that's just starting out, or maybe he's just got one daughter like me, what is that advice that you give a young dad who's kind of getting started?
Yeah, I got a caveat off of that because I spent 13 years in the military. And this is something my daughter's taught me about my relationship, my wife even. But all that suffering or grind or that hard work or the hard things I did outside the picture of the family. When I was there, I was just that indestructible dude, right? And learning to check that at the door. Like, they don't need that all the time, or sometimes like they need it very little. Let them see you struggle and be okay with it. Because for me, at least, that was an adjustment. I don't know when the first time my wife saw me do something that like kicked my butt was. But that's helped my 2 oldest daughters, especially, and it's starting to help the younger 2 now, but like them watching me, like the wall back up. All right, how do I adjust fire and the target? Okay, I'm going to do this. And then letting them watch me process. I can see it in my oldest 2. They will not let me help them cook if I'm letting the older 2 cook. They'll be like, no, get out of here. We don't need you. We're going to do this. That makes me happy inside, It's a little now, but like I see the fire in their eye,
So I'm hearing that it's important to not always be the tough guy, the strong guy, to let our guard down a little bit, let our kids see the real person. So I think that's important. Scott Sela, what would you tell us, a new dad, or maybe just getting started girl dad?
Well, kind of a combination of what we're talking about is, I just say, play with them, play what they want to play, watch what they want to watch. I don't know how many Barbie nutcrackers I watched, but do it with them and be careful because you'll find yourself like sometimes some of them you're like, I know that story well and I can tell it to you, but play with them. Do the stuff they want to do. Let them mess, because when you have hair, let them mess with your hair. Let them try to do your nails. Let them have fun with you and let them be girls because they're not your miniature boys. You got some girls that want to do hey, let's go dig in the dirt. That's fine, but play what they want to play. Play with them, play with your girls, dad, and don't be the tough guy, as Scott's saying all the time. Be the dad that can be silly, goofy, and ends up with eyeshadow because you love your kids and you want to play with them.
No, I appreciate that. That's a good point to play. I think sometimes I talk to the parents and they don't know how to play maybe with their kids. Maybe they weren't played with themselves and they struggle with how to do that. So it's a good reminder to get on the floor or do the things with our kids. Let's play with them. So I like that. Gentlemen, I've enjoyed the podcast. I've learned a lot. It's helped me as a dad myself. So I've got a lot of wisdom from y'all tonight. So I want to thank you, Scott Patrick. I appreciate your service, sir, for the military, and Scott Sheila, your wisdom. I appreciate that. And so, as always, at Muscular Minds, our podcasts are about creating resilience and mental and physical fitness in our spiritual walk as well. And we're excited that we've been on to talk about being a girl dad tonight. We've talked to what I feel like are 3 experts on raising girls. They've got plenty of stories, and these are wonderful men. So we're excited we got to do that tonight, and we look forward to catching you back in one of our podcasts.
Thanks for joining Muscular Minds today, where strength isn't measured by how much you lift, but who you lift up. And that starts with you.